I was checking the channel stats today and I realized I haven't posted in a good while, and that has a big impact on the channel. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that there's a good reason for it, but that's gonna come at a later video. For now, I want to spread some truth about what happens in the banking system and how American Express is really the most profitable banker in the United States, at least by growth. See, the thing is that there's three main areas that banks are working in the United States. All banks do the same things more or less, but in the United States, there's a key differentiator based on the other banks around the world. We'll get to it. I think it's important to start with the basics. So I'm going to start with the number 3. I thought I would start 1, 2, 3, but I'm going to go actually 3, 2, 1 because the last one matters to this channel. So without any further ado, let's start with the number 3 thing that the banks in the United States do that affect people and they keep you poor. Number 1, house loans. And now you're gonna say, what? My mortgage is my investment. I have investments. It's a big part of my nest egg. And you can say a bunch of many things about your house, but here's the hard reality of it. The house market, with all the ups and downs, and in the end, you can see that it's going up and it looks amazing when you see it on a graph. So once you factor in the inflation, you see that it's really keeping up with inflation. So it's a forced savings. And as a forced savings, I can see why many are getting excited about having a house. Once you put in everything, all the hidden costs, roof replacements, windows, whatever, that doesn't look as good as you might think. I did the math before. I have a whole video dedicated to this, so I'm not going to go into the details. But the main key things that I want you to keep in mind is that, and because the subject is not owning the house, is what the banks are doing about it, is refinancing. And refinancing might make sense for somebody that has common sense. So if you're watching this channel, most likely you belong to this category that has some common sense. So what you do, you get a house. Let's say you bought a house last year with 7% APR, and down the line, the Fed drops the basic interest rate, and now you can refinance with 5%. Mathematically, it makes all the sense, and you probably should do it. The problem is, you start the clock again, a new 30-year loan, and that is a big issue because now you have more take-home money, you spend less on that mortgage, and if you kept paying as you never got that discount on your monthly payment, then that's great because now you're paying a whole lot more towards the actual mortgage, and that's great. But most people don't do that. Most people just take that money and spend it. And that's a big issue. If you ever saw how the amortization of a loan goes, you will see that for the first years, about a decade and a half, all you pay is interest. You just pay a little bit on the principal. So if you're planning to move within 5-10 years, that most people do, then you are in for an unpleasant surprise. You don't actually start paying down more of the actual loan, the actual amount of the house, the principal, until year 19. 19 years until you start paying that loan off. So by that time, for a $400,000 home, you pay about $600,000 in interest. Math might make sense for you. You might say it's my nest egg, whatever. It's part of my property. I pass down the line something. Maybe if you keep it and you actually do that, how many people do that? If you sell it and I try to cash that money, then you need to still live somewhere. So it's a little complicated subject, if you ask me, much more complicated than the banks want you to believe. And believe me, based on the numbers we're going to share later, if your best interest was in their mind, they wouldn't be making this kind of crazy profits that they've been making. So that's number 3. Number 2 is the car loans. And I'm so surprised. I'm not even looking for a car. And I have in my Chase app, I mean, most of you probably have the same, an loan offer for a car, $54,000 at 6% interest. And I'm like, I never asked for this. Why do you rub it on my face? So I start dreaming about a $54,000 car that I'm already approved and I don't need to do anything about it. So I think that's another one. The fact that you can have multiple car loans at the same time is also problematic, if you ask me. I have 2. It just so happened that my wife moved recently. You guys know that. So I had to get a second car. But if not, I would never do that. And also, I'm getting closer to paying them off. Anyway, that's number 2. Now, the number 1 is what you probably can imagine, because I didn't mention anything about it, and it's the elephant in the room, and especially for a channel that talks about credit cards and points, and that is the payment methods in general. Now, we're going to focus on the credit cards, obviously, because that's the main paying method, but the kind of the payment methods that we had in the world has changed dramatically. We went from the gold standard, actual gold, to fiat currency, printing based on thin air, basically. And then from that point, but we still had cash, and we had to give paper in order to buy stuff. And it was painful to see the wallet getting thinner and thinner. That changed. Then we had checks. We started writing checks, but that still required you to take out your checkbook, write something down, still give something. It gives you time while you're writing. Do I really want this? We went to credit cards. Credit cards, they used to slide them over a machine, basically making a carbon copy out of it. Then we went to sliding the credit card. We went to inserting the credit card with a chip, and now we're just tapping, or not even having the credit cards and just having everything to our digital wallet, to your Apple Watch, to your iPhone or whatever phone you have. So now you always have money with you, available to spend at a tap's notice. You don't even need to have your wallet with you, which is extremely problematic. I'm not even going to go to buy now, pay later schemes. But what happens with credit cards? I said before in videos that I had a credit card issue before. I had not a good concept of what points meant. They're designed in a way that it makes you think that you have more than you actually have. For example, 1,000 points is only $10. So they add a bunch of zeros there to try to make it more accurate. I know what that does logistically. But for the average person, that just says I probably have $100. It's not 10. Most people don't realize. That's the one thing. And then the other is the annual fees that they give you some kind of credits if you saw the new Chase offer with a Sapphire Preferred. They give you 60,000 points, and then $300. They advertise it as such, but then you have to go to the Chase portal and get the travel within a year through the Chase portal. And if you check Chase portal, in many cases, it's much more expensive than if you go to booking.com or whatever. So they're going down the Amex path, I think, and there's a good reason for it. Let's see some numbers here. So I'm going to start with the lowest of the 3 banks I'm going to examine right now. The JP Morgan Chase is the lowest in the past 25 years or so, let's say roughly 25 to 30 years. You can see the graph. 2,146% increase in their stock price. They must be doing something right. 2,000. Imagine putting money back then. That's all I'm going to say. or where you should put it in the future. 70 billion out of 158 billion of revenue comes from consumer and community banking. So yeah, consumer and community banking, basically credit cards, loans to you. So that's where the main business is right here. About 50% is just the average Joe. And then I'm gonna go to Capital One, which has 2,731% increase in the past 25 or 30 years. And 26 billion is the credit card revenue. 26 billion. That's out of 37 billion of net revenue. So, okay. And now let's go to everybody's favorite, American Express. 6,106%. So 3 times what the others did in the past 25 to 30 years. And 64% of their revenue is credit card related. 64%. So next time when I hear you people complaining about my opinion about American Express and how they make you jump through hoops in order to get some credit, and you think that you get the credits and you trick the system, I'm going to show you this number. And I'm going to say, if what you say is true and everybody is doing that, then how come they make 6,106% increase in their stock the past 25 years? And 64% of the revenue is credit card related. So most people don't know how to use these credit cards. Most people are fooling themselves thinking that they know how to use these credit cards and the credits, and they don't. And American Express end up pocketing the charges that they do to all the merchants, the about 3%, the annual fees, high annual fees, and then whatever you're not using as points because you either save them too much or you never use them or you don't go through the portals to take all the advantages, whatever, they keep them. They make you jump through hoops because in the end of the day, you're going to miss something. And that's going to mean additional profit to them. So American Express is really doing it amazing. American Express is owned by Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett had interviews in the past. I heard him saying that especially insurance, he owns Geico as well. Geico is one of the largest. Geico Insurance and American Express. So he has everything covered. What do people want? Platinum cards and good insurance. So he can't go wrong. And that's why American Express is number one. And the profits have been skyrocketed. And if you see the graphs, since I think we start spending more as culture because of social media and because of how easy it has gotten to spend money, again, by things like the digital wallets, you can see the graphs, how they just jump in the last few years. But that's all for today, guys. Let me know what you think. Am I exaggerating? Am I missing something? Please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one. Ciao.